All right, well, welcome to our member webinar, and we're excited that you guys could all join us with our presenter today. We have Blake Cundiff with Alliance Systems, or Alliance Corporate, or Alliance Technologies, depending on what branch you're working with that day. But today, we're going to be talking about web accessibility awareness, and I'm going to pass this on over to Blake, our expert in the field, and let you lead us today. So,
awesome. Thank you so much, Tom, and good afternoon to everyone. I appreciate you all taking time out of your afternoon to take a look at what we're sharing on this increasingly important topic. So really what we're looking to share is how businesses are now taking steps so everyone, regardless of their condition, has access to a great online user experience. So what that really means is the number of folks out there that have different types of disabilities and being able to access content on the web and specifically your web page and how that kind of all ties together. So as we've kind of mentioned in several of the emails leading up to this, anyone who registered will receive a free accessibility audit that I can send out as an email. And really what that's going to do, it's a software that we have that we run a quick scan. It only takes a few minutes, and it will crawl through your website and spit out a report on how well you did on an accessibility audit. So it'll give you an idea of where you're compliant or where you're not, and just kind of some ideas on what to do about that. So my name is Blake Cundiff, as Tom alluded to, with Alliance Corporate. Alliance Systems is one of our companies that really focuses in this arena of website design and development, all the way through the back end of where the entire company's tech stack and infrastructure and all those workflows kind of tie into each other, and how all of the systems kind of speak to each other. And so this is just kind of one component of what we do that has a good place in our heart, because we know it's the right thing to do to help people out that need it. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today here. So I'll go ahead and flip to the next one. So, web content accessibility guidelines, there's an acronym, WCAG. So if you see that in the future or at all during this presentation, that's what that stands for. They're strategy, standards, and resources that help make the web accessible to those with disabilities. And it's really built on 4 core principles. Information has to be perceivable. And so, I think most people kind of default to vision impairments. So that's just one part of it, though. There's different interface components that need to be a part of that. And so really what we're talking about here is most folks that have some type of disability that makes it a challenge to access information online, they're out either purchasing on their own or having, support services come in and bring in external devices that actually connect into the computer or tablet or mobile device that kind of serves as a bridge between, the way that those of us that don't have these challenges kind of interact with websites and get access to that information. So one very important thing that I want to touch on too, legal disclaimer. I am by no means an attorney, and a lot of what we're sharing here today are suggestions and just information that's readily accessible to other people. But it's in no means intended to be legal advice, and especially if you checked with Mo, you would know not to take legal advice from me. So just kidding, but definitely an important disclaimer. So the second part and pillar of these principles is that the components and navigation must be operable. So the way that menus and forms are filled out, and the way that you can access the information on a certain web page. The third principle is that the information and operation of that interface has to be understandable. So not just operable and perceivable, but it needs to be in a manner with which it can be understandable. and then it must be robust enough to be interpreted by a wide range of assistive technologies. And that's what I was referring to when I said an external device that's assisting in the way that that information that's perceivable, operable, understandable, it has to be robust enough to tie into and adapt to all those different kind of assisted technologies. So why care about web accessibility? It's a real effective and stable solution, not just for business, but also for including people that have disabilities. You know, to most, it's a relatable concept to think of accessibility when you're entering a building and there's a wheelchair ramp or the bathroom door frames are a certain width, but really, you know, people forget or don't even think about the fact that on a website, if I have a vision impairment, there needs to be some kind of wheelchair ramp, so to speak, that can help me gain access to that. So it's safe to say that in 2020, with everyone moving to more of a remote environment and being online more than we ever really have been, particularly, you know, looking for information and learning about new products and services that we may want to purchase, you want to make sure that it's not prohibitive to those that can't access it like a normal day-to-day person without those challenges would. So, you know, it's easy to relate it to 2020, but it's actually an older problem than that. In the year 2019 is when people really started tracking a lot more of how well people's websites performed. And it's really been on a meteoric rise ever since then. So thousands and thousands of lawsuits and demand letters, meaning letters that go out to demanding that someone gets compliant or there'll be further action, have been served to small business owners, all the way up to, you know, the Supreme Court and the Domino's Pizza lawsuit from 2019. It's actually driven an increase of over 400% in Google searches, just around the keywords for ADA and that acronym that we talked about earlier, WCAG, and looking for a compliance solution. And that's just in the year 2019. So it's been on more of a meteoric rise. 2019 really got it started, and then 2020, I think so many more people are aware of that because of the amount of traffic that's online. So as I mentioned before, it's really easy to just, when you think about how someone would access the website, most people are thinking of just, you know, visual impairments. But there's a whole other subcategory for that. You know, there's blindness, motor impairment, cognitive disorders, color blindness, epilepsy, blurred vision, old age, cataracts. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on for what kind of visual challenges people might have and being able to actually see it. And there's an estimated 7.3 million Americans that have some form of these vision disabilities, all the way up to total blindness. And so that's 2.3% of the US population that has to have some kind of assistive technology to fully access the internet and web pages. So just kind of imagine that for a second. 2.3% of the population that's trying to interact with web pages is using or needs to use some kind of assistive technology for them to be able to do that. And so it's continuing to increase more and more. So as I mentioned before, you know, when you think about blind and visually impaired, there's some kind of external device that they've gone out and purchased or a support service has provided for them. You know, if your website code isn't compatible with those devices, you're really not just missing out on the ability to inform that person of what you do and who you do it for and why you do it. But it can be frustrating for that person, and it can even be viewed as discriminatory sorry, I'm getting kind of a weird echo there in the background. Is that me or is it someone else not on mute? There we go. Sorry about that. So yeah, so it can be frustrating to someone who's trying to interact with your website, but it can also be viewed as discriminatory in our litigious society these days. But you know, your examples of ways that people need to be able to adapt here using those technologies is being able to increase the media size, the text, the reading or browsing experience. There are keyboard systems that assist in dictation, braille, but so there's just such a high number of ways that your code, if it's done in a very basic, simple way and it's compliant, can actually very easily interact with these devices and make it a marketable thing for you to be able to access that kind of potential customer. So beyond just the visual impairments, there's motor disabled individuals out there. So you've got people that are limited in the way that they can kind of move or operate freely with their motor functions. So typing on keyboards, Parkinson's disease, other organ injuries, I mean, amputations. There's situations where not even the assisted device that ties to a keyboard or a mouse are even usable. So they actually need a different type of customizable tool to be able to use. And there's headsets that have technology that follow where a person is looking and how that interacts with the keyboard and how that interacts with the screen. But it's amazing how the technology continues to kind of change and improve. But it only works if the code in your website is compatible with that type of technology, and it doesn't have to be very difficult to do that. The next one that we'll talk about is epilepsy. So with GIFs and videos and flashing colors and graphics going across the screen, there are some guidelines that are recommended out there to make it more safe and accessible for people that struggle with epilepsy. So those flashing and the refreshing screens can trigger seizures, videos, animations, different things like that. You need to have the ability for some of your website content to be downloaded as a PDF that is not including any of those animations and colors and flashes, so that someone can still access that information without being at risk of suffering a seizure or having anything like that triggered. So kind of what really got a lot of the content and the wheels turning here for this discussion was a recent study of 10 million web pages. And that software that I mentioned that we can run on someone's website in just a matter of moments, depending on the size, typically within a moment or two, we can get a quick audit spit out that shows the areas that you may or may not be compliant in. And so as you can see here on the slide, this kind of shows you the percentages of where people had failures from those. So the very first one, a good example, some menus. The highest number of failures were in menus because the navigation wasn't compatible with keyboard inputs. So we're used to using a mouse, and someone else may be using a keyboard to kind of navigate through the different menu options. And most web designers are ignoring the kind of programming that's required for that because it's seen as extra or maybe not deemed as necessary, but it's actually, the number one reason that this data collection saw failures. The second category there, images, failed just because of the lack of the ability to properly describe objects that are within that image. So if it can't be seen, there should be alternate text that can explain what's happening there. The third one was pop-ups, and pop-ups drive me crazy, but it's actually a critical piece of accessibility here. So very few audits will pass this test, even when using a quote unquote accessible pop-up plugin and service. Just means that you need to be able to control a pop-up that comes up with standard options like being able to navigate through them through tabbing, being able to close them with the escape key. They have to be able to do those kind of functionalities because someone may not be able to see or control when that's not working properly. Next is forms. So if you think about the way that you can just click on a form and, Google a lot of times autofills most of the forms that I'm filling out. But on a lot of web pages that were audited here, there was an error that popped up because the keyboard would, as you tabbed through, would take it to an invalid field. So maybe you click tab one extra time. Now the cursor is out of the field and it's over on another menu item. And if you can't see that happening, you've lost where you're at on the web page, and it can be difficult, frustrating. So forms are another big part of it. Icons. So that's kind of similar to how the forms function and the buttons as well. But the unfortunate thing is that I mentioned a lot of companies view this type of coding or additional functionality as extra or unnecessary, or even as an additional expense or a cost. When really, when you think about it, I mean, it's a good discussion to start. If I had a child who was visually impaired, I of course would be even more passionate about this. And outside of just doing, the right thing, there's, it's becoming more and more of a legal focus, and that doesn't seem to be going away with the volume of people that are surfing the web right now. And so it's not as much of a cost or an expense or a hassle to actually get yourself compliant. And don't even think about it as just a customer that's using it as e-commerce. You may say, well, my business, if you were visually impaired, you wouldn't be a customer anyways. We hear that occasionally when we're meeting with clients, and it goes beyond that though. If you have a job application that job posting you have on your website, and someone wants to apply for that actual particular role within your company, it could be viewed as discriminatory that they weren't able to go on there and apply for that role because the coding on your website wasn't compatible with the external devices that they were using. The administering of employee benefits. If you have an employee that has to go online that faces any of these challenges and can't participate in benefits because of that, can be viewed as discriminatory. And so one benefit that I think I wanted to share with the group as well is that a lot of the compliance principles that are required for this make your content more SEO friendly. And so it can actually, if there is a small cost that goes into it, a lot of times, you start to see that the way that the content flows once it's compliant actually can improve your SEO scoring. And so that's important to think about too. Not that it'll go dollar for dollar, so to speak, but it's really another piece to gain on top of it. So some key lawsuit examples. The two probably most relevant, most well-known were Domino's and 20th Century Fox. I had mentioned earlier that, Domino's, they had a blind customer that sued because they weren't able to make an order through the mobile app or the website. It wasn't working with their assistive software. And so it really crossed over into this uncharted territory of where does a physical place of business stop and become a virtual place of business, and where does that ADA guidelines and laws, where do those cross over? Do they continue into the virtual place, or do they stop where the physical place of business stops? And so it really opened up. This one made it all the way to the Supreme Court, and it really kind of put this concept on the map. And so, they are Domino's, meaning kind of the first that we wanted to highlight there of bigger companies that got slapped with lawsuits that needed to make serious changes to the way that their website and application interacts with customers. The other one was 20th Century Fox, and this was actually from an employee who worked there who felt like it was discriminatory for employer provided insurance. So you think about when you do your enrollment and select your benefits every year at open enrollment, whatever the platform or the software that they were using to administer those was not compatible with their software. And so they were able to, complain and ask about it. But when it hit the highest level, 20th Century Fox just kind of told them that's the way that the system works. And so you're going to have to figure out a way around it. And while that's probably not an ideal answer ever, right? It was definitely viewed as discriminatory to keeping that person from being able to enroll in their benefits and whatnot. So just real-time examples of really large companies that have been tied to this kind of stuff. I mentioned earlier that technology continues to improve in that area. So I mentioned the head tracking system that kind of helps guide the way that that interacts with keyboards, but gaming, it's kind of counterintuitive to think, but they are some of the technology leaders in some of this assisted technology. So the access controllers, adaptive controllers through Xbox, there's a lot of technological improvements that are being made. But again, that's all for nothing if as soon as they land on a website that doesn't tie into that technology, then it really doesn't help them pass that. So that's the gaming industry is just one of the leaders that I wanted to kind of focus on for that. So in summary, and just a couple questions to consider, should you be concerned about compliance? I think it's definitely something that everyone should consider, not just to, protect yourselves liability wise, but also from wanting to reach customers and be able to have a good user experience on your site and protect yourself at the same time. And that kind of is another way of stating the second question here. Do you want to provide an experience for all? And again, not just trying to sell product or services to anyone, but also for the ability for people to just interact with job listings or different things that you may have on your page. And just keeping up with compliance and caring about accessibility. So one of the things I mentioned at the very beginning, and that was communicated out when we were inviting people to attend, was that we would run our software on anyone's website that wanted to get a quick audit and just kind of see where you're at. It just takes a few minutes, and I'm happy to schedule time, even if it's just 15 minutes that you just want to kind of get more information about any violations that you may have, or just chat more on the topic. I mean, this is just kind of more of a conversation starter than anything. I mean, an awareness thing. I think, as a good chamber member, we wanted to make sure that everyone that is a part of this group, not just on the webinar, but just in general, is aware that this is a thing, and that there are technologies out there like we have with the software to drill down into exactly where you may not be compliant. And there's also technology that, for fairly cost effective and an ongoing kind of maintenance, is another option to make sure that you continue to stay compliant as those regulations change and are tweaked over time. And that you shouldn't be scared to have that discussion, because it's not as big of an unknown as you may think. So I would encourage you to engage us or someone else once you have that audit, to take a look at what it might take to get you compliant from there. So if you want to contact me, it's my cell phone across the top, 314-202-3312. My email is there below, blake.cundiff@alliancecorp.co. Yes, that's CO. Everyone always thinks it's a typo there, that there's no M on the end. It is .co. And like I said, I'm happy to schedule just a follow-up discussion to hear what your thoughts in general are on this topic. And also, if you want to dig deeper into some of the findings that we have from your webpage. So with that, Tom, I think I'll turn it back over to you. And if anyone has any questions, or like I said, just discussion and feedback on this topic, I'd love to chat.
Thank you, Blake. I know as a new member of the Coeur-Olivette Chamber, I was excited to hear more about some of the services that you guys offer. And this is clearly one that I think most people don't think about, but it's always important to see how we're engaging our community and our customers. And I wouldn't say I thought about this until you brought it to my attention. So now it makes me think about our website, you know, when people register online, how does that look, you know, as people read and want to check things out, how do we look online, you know, for all people, as you said, which I think is a really important thing to recognize. It looks like Mo has a question on here. He just put in the chat. How do you optimize for deaf people via videos? Closed caption available on web videos?
Does that make sense, Blake?
It does, and the nice thing is there's different technologies out there that can serve as that bridge between those assistive technologies and what content you have on the website. And so it's pretty easy to source those and connect the two. That if you don't have closed captioning on the videos that are on your page, that they can provide that for you. And again, like I mentioned earlier with the SEO, that's a perfect example of how that kind of helps your SEO scoring when now you've got closed captioning, it's being indexed, it starts to kind of help that out anyways. So that's definitely one of the ways that for hearing impaired people.
So right now, Blake, when we post videos on our Facebook page or our web page, they don't have that embedded technology in there where you, like our TVs where you can just put closed caption on. Can you not do that with, I never even thought about it. Can you not do that with web videos?
You can, there's technology out there that exists for that.
So you gotta buy that technology or get someone like you to do that and closed caption it?
Yeah, we give options on that where we can either help, you know, find that for you or give you some options or connect the two for sure. This is, you know, to us, in the interest of transparency, this isn't like our core business is not to focus on trying to go out and this is an awareness thing that we want to help with. You know, our project sizes are usually further beyond some of these projects. This is something we felt passionate about helping and increasing awareness on. And so we're definitely willing and able to help, you know, connect the technology that people need for exact situations like what you just kind of laid out there, Mo.
Like, what does Alliance Corp do then? What is your main focus?
So it starts with technologies in terms of like an outsourced IT model, if you're familiar with managed service providers.
Okay.
So we start off as simple as a help desk, an outsourced team of 5 or 6 that usually offset the cost of a singular employee in a full-time role. We do project-based IT work. That's been kind of the hot topic of the year as technology needs changed pretty dramatically in 2020. You know, high-level type of strategic consulting. We do fractional CIO, CTO work. And then that extends into Alliance Systems, which is the division that does a lot of this, which is website design and development, mobile application design and development, software design and development, and mainly in like operating systems and infrastructure and the way that all those systems kind of speak to each other all the way to the website that you see front facing there.
Gotcha. What did
Can I ask,
Domino's end up doing?
Hey, Alan, good question. And can I ask Blake, what's your average size, your client, and are you mainly in St. Louis, or is this you know, everything it's because it's online, you cover across the country?
Yeah, so what I was describing with the IT, you know, most of that is we usually start at about 5 employees up to 500 is kind of our sweet spot in terms of being like the outsourced IT component. When you talk about the software and the mobile and the web app design and development, that's anywhere. I mean, we've got a client in San Diego that we've done big business with this year that we've never met, and I can't wait to fly out there to meet him. Not just to get the heck out of here, but also love Southern California. But
San Diego's a great city.
I love it. I got married in
That's
Del
the home
Mar.
of Phil Mickelson. That's the home of Phil. My wife knows that well. So. Good.
Yeah.
That's good. So you guys are locally owned, is that it? Is this a locally owned company?
Correct. Locally owned and operated, but we do business all over the U.S. And so we're right here in Creve Coeur. We're, like Tom had mentioned, we're new members of the chamber. We joined just a few months ago, and our office is in off of Executive Parkway back here behind where the old Houlihan's was.
Yeah. I know
So
where you're at. Sure.
yeah, so we're back here, and but yeah, I mean we're really all over the U.S. with technology. We're able to remote in and troubleshoot computers from wherever.
Great. That's great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Does anyone else have any questions? I thought I heard someone earlier. Don't forget to unmute yourself, unless you prefer to stick it in the chat.
I thought I saw another chat one ping in there. Oh no, it was okay. It was Mo.
As an add-on. Yeah, because, like Mo works at Mathnasium with children. So, and I know I have a couple kids myself, and, it is helpful when there are certain sites that, that can, I have a child that's dyslexic. So sometimes it's helpful when he can use certain software to help him read through some of this stuff. So I'm sure that's also a byproduct of some of this.
It absolutely is. And I think this is one of those things where I was mentioning to my brother this morning about what I was doing this afternoon. And he said, that's made up. There's no website ADA compliance. He said, and I kind of laughed and said, it may not be something you think of when you are online, but now I promise everyone that has attended, you're going to notice the little icon of the little person with their arms up on the website, and that's where you kind of start to open up those tools and resources online that can help people out. So you'll notice it a lot more, and it's a good thing. So
Awesome. Well,
okay.
Anybody have any other questions for Blake?
Blake, you guys doing any corporate events at the office, or are you shut down, or what's the status of Alliance Corporate nowadays?
Yeah, so we've been very fortunate. Our leadership team here has made it very clear that we're following all the normal CDC protocols in the office, but it's up to everyone's comfort level. If you're willing and wanting to come in, you follow the guidelines and everybody's safe, and we don't score any extra points for coming in, and we don't lose any points for working from home more often. And so everybody we've got enough square footage, Mo, that if everybody showed up, we'd have more than enough social distance between us. But we've had several meetings where I'm a part of a few networking groups that have met here, where everybody comes in, signs in, masks up, and then we go into our large training center, and everybody's sitting in a U-shaped layout, and then we've got a television, and we can all share screens and kind of interact and network and finally be near human beings, even if it's 6 feet away or more. And so I would say that we're on the open side, but we're definitely on the careful side of making sure people feel comfortable. And that includes our employees being comfortable with everyone, someone like me bringing in, folks that I want to meet with and connect with and build relationships with, to let them see the office. We just want everybody to feel comfortable that we're all being careful and following the guidelines.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions?
So how long have you been in Creve Coeur? I know you're new members here the last last couple months, but how long have you been in Creve Coeur?
Just since, I believe we got the keys in April. So we were in Westport for the last several years, and got a heck of a deal during the shutdown. Someone had just been, the company that was in the space was acquired, and we just grabbed the sublease, and we were able to upgrade our square footage and facilities, and and do it during a difficult time. And so I think it was mid-April maybe, that we finally got the keys and actually moved in. And then I was introduced. Mo and I had gone back a few years. We've met a while ago. Jeremy Hodis and I have known each other for a while. And Mo and I connected, and he said, "You need to join the chamber, man. You guys just moved to the neighborhood." So,
Way to go, Mo.
yeah. And
That's all it took. God, I wish I could close deals like that in the business world.
Good for you, Mo. Good for you.
well, you know, it wasn't just Mo. We go to the same barber, it looks like, so that kind of helped convince me a little bit too. But we joined up, and we've tried to be as active as possible. There's several other folks in my office that participate in different morning coffees. If one of us can't make it, we try to communicate and get somebody else out there. And so we're doing our best to be active and engaged, meet as many people as we can in the chamber, and be a good member. So.
Yeah, thanks for joining. That's good. You guys are great. In the short time I've already, I've met you I've seen you a couple times, and I've seen Kurt a couple times already in this COVID thing. So you guys get out there and support the community. So yeah, welcome. We're lucky to have you guys there. So thanks for moving.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining. And Tom's doing a great job. And Blake, I just want to make sure you know that we're glad we got Alan on, because he usually gives out free money. So, no, they do a good job on the PPP, right? Did you guys, Blake, submit anything on that? Because I know Alan's had a lot of people mention to me that he did a great job on the PPP. So.
Yeah, we did. We were one of the fortunate ones that were able to take advantage of that too. So, but Alan, I'm open to some free money if you got that going too.
I spent all my PPP money in Las Vegas.
Oh, is that a field trip? Is that one of the chamber things, Tom, you got cooking up there?
I thought that was the PPP money was supposed to be for trips.
Yeah. No. The next thing we have coming up, a big thing we have coming up, is our golf tournament on the 13th, which I know you guys are in and are sponsoring. And I know Alan's going to try and get that hole-in-one for the car. So, and Mo will be delivering some drinks, and so it'll be a fun time. So, but I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time, and everybody has a busy work schedule. But I think everybody here is probably curious of what our score would be, as far as like if we were to audit our websites to see how accessible and helpful they are. And I'd be curious to see how we can better engage our customers and our community through our sites. So. So I thank you for sponsoring this webinar, and I just encourage anybody, if you have any questions, to reach out to Blake. His number's on the screen, and his email's on the screen, and we'll be recording this so we can also share that after our call. So
Thank you, Blake.
Yeah, appreciate you all for attending. Tom and Donna, thanks for putting this together.
Thanks,
You're
guys.
Good to see everybody.
All right, see y'all.
thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.